Hello, I'm Donald Leggett and welcome to this edition of Share Views brought to you by London South East. Our guest today is George Lucan, Managing Director of onshore UK oil and gas specialist Angus Energy, best known for its Weald Basin holdings Brockham, Brockham and Lidsey. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Donald.
Have you been busy?
We've been very, very busy. As you know, I took over at the end of January, beginning of February. We've assembled from scratch, pretty much, a new board, a new non-exec chairman, fantastic oil and gas credentials, promoted our finance director, brought on board a technical director so that we've got constant CPR advice right on a day-by-day basis at board level. With that board together, we set out a new schedule of all of our works on our Weald assets, which you know are Brockham, and Lidsey, for the next year. And what we've been doing, in addition to that, which I think you'll ask me about later, is some proper fundraising to ensure that we're adequately resourced to exploit those assets in the coming year.
So how would you describe things? How have things been going so far?
So things have been going well. When I took over, we were at the beginnings of works on Brockham. Just before I took over, they did an initial drill, and in fact, pretty much the day I joined, we encountered a very large water pressure, a zone of water pressure in the well, which was a disappointment because it meant we had to do additional work. I set out a schedule of those works. They're lengthy, they're extensive. We're halfway through them, but we did successfully isolate that water zone, which means at least we can now get at the clay and see what flow we can obtain from it. So the next step there with Brockham will be sitting down with partners, discussing the costs of the flow test equipment, bringing it on site, and working that well properly and efficiently. But I'll just stop you there if I can, because on that point, I think my predecessor left a lot of shareholders who closely follow us with the impression that Brockham was a kind of, turn on the taps and it will run out.
Yes, I think that's fair.
Yeah. It's not a conventional reservoir, and I think there's got to be some expectation management here. Over at our competitors, UCOG, the works they've done at Broadford Bridge and at Horse Hill were extensive, in particular in this latter stage of the works, where you're trying to actually function a well test, get proper communication with the actual reservoir in order to stimulate flow. This is the tricky part. We know this is the tricky part. UCOG don't deny it. So we're going to have to think a lot about this and get it right. So I'm not the turn on the taps man, I'm afraid, nor am I the person who says, oh, it's a duster if you don't get everything right on the first day.
So you sound very realistic.
I hope so, yeah.
Okay, now you turned up at Angus Energy in a slightly unconventional manner. How would you describe your arrival at Angus? What was that all about?
Well, I think you had to go back in history. Angus has taken a lot of knocks in the last 6-8 months. It lost its executive chairman, Jonathan Tidswell, in a compliance and regulatory nightmare. He had to step down from the board.
And what's happened to Jonathan? Does he still hold shares? Is he still involved with you guys?
Yeah, very much so. Supportive shareholder and an absolutely excellent director of operations. And I think all the people who follow the company know that he's an exceedingly entrepreneurial fellow, and he's always working very hard behind the scenes for shareholders, and for himself as much as anything else as a major shareholder. So we have very good relations with Jonathan. And
your relationships are more solid, do you think?
I believe so, yes. Okay. So what happened there was the relationship deteriorated at the beginning of January. There was a requisition call by shareholders, and after a time, Paul saw fit to step aside rather than go to shareholder meetings. So I appeared in quite a hurry. My background's finance, mainly.
You made it into the FT, George. That was I think most AIM companies never achieve.
I know, it was a hello mum moment. Very good, if you were around. But my background is finance. I have worked in the energy sector in finance and the alternative energy sector. So I'm not new to the scene entirely, but I'm new to, if you like, frontline oil and gas. And I'm greatly enjoying it. But in particular, I was brought on board because I've got some credentials in corporate governance and in sorting out companies which have got into a little bit of distress at board level. And I think I've got to be honest with you, the condition of the company with one executive board member for the last 6 months of last year and 3 non-executives, few of whom had any real base in London, it was deeply unsatisfactory and was bound to lead to all sorts of other problems. And I fully support shareholders' intervention in this instance. So the first thing I've been doing is getting a proper board together. And as I said, the second thing is to get a proper capital structure. Because Paul, my predecessor, and actually through no fault of his, was of course unable to go to market properly whilst this requisition hung over his head. So he raised finance which he wouldn't have otherwise raised, which was a convertible loan note. Potentially very dangerous for a company with, if you like, uncertain immediate prospects, which was true in January. So my first instance in February was to get rid of that, repay that, and then take time out, establish a schedule of works for all of these assets, come back to shareholders and say, please resource us properly. So we did that last week. We raised 3 million quid.
Who did you raise the £3 million from?
A variety of private investors and small institutions.
Mm-hmm. And you're happy
WH Ireland did a very good job.
Okay. You're happy to have those people on board?
Very happy with those people on board. Am I happy with the price on behalf of shareholders? No, of course not. I'm raising here at the bottom. I know it. I've got absolutely no choice. You know, I have to resource this company properly so that it can take advantage of the assets that it's got and of the opportunities it has around it. And I think one of the points to make nowadays, we live in a heavily regulated world. You can't go out there wildcatting like you used to be able to. You can't go out there grabbing great deals with just 50 grand in the bank and hoping no one will notice. People want to know you're a man of substance, that you've got a proper board, a proper system, proper capital behind you before they let you into deals any longer.
So you've just raised 3 million and you've got an open offer for further £450,000.
Yeah, for 500 in total, yeah.
500 in total, to pay the fees, I presume.
Yeah, well, it's 475 million. It's a fractional thing, isn't it? 1 in 50 shares, whatever that works out as.
So, open offer, why should shareholders support you and put some more money into the company?
Well, first of all, I come back to the open offer. This is again a matter of corporate governance, good shareholder relations. Regardless of whether or not it's success, I feel shareholders deserve a chance every time we do a placing, if it's at all possible, to do an open offer. They've, in the past, I understand they've complained that, oh, well, you know, the placing, the big placees, they get in there, they get a bloody good price, and we're left to pick up the pieces down the track.
It can be true.
And it can be true, and probably is in many instances. I hope not too often with Angus. But going forward, it won't be the case. So this is here to say, listen, you guys, you're in here at the same price as these fellows, these big guys, if you want to pick it up. If you don't want to pick it up, that's fine by me. But you're going to get the offer. Now, whenever we have to do this again in the future, and no time soon, relax on that, we'll again try to do this. And I think I qualified that with saying there will be occasions when timing is such on the acquisition of something where it isn't appropriate to do a lengthy open offer process. And there'll be occasions when quantum isn't appropriate for an open offer. But by and large, I'm going to try and stick to that rule going forward.
What do shareholders need to do if they want to partake?
Well, we've got on the website, we have an open offer circular. On about page 3, there's a very clear description of the timeline and of whom you contact, forms you fill out, and so forth. Don't be fazed by the size of the document. It's actually relatively simple and directs you to the relevant pages. Ignore about 80% of it as usual, but stick with the timeline and follow that. And if you want any assistance at all, get into contact either with us on our website or with brokers, WH Ireland, who will guide you through the process.
Fantastic. In the small print of that RNS, there was you were talking about an acquisition of a gas asset in the north of England. Tell us more.
Well, this is the reason that I even have the courage to show my face to shareholders again so soon after the last raising. Although we're not raising the money to acquire this, because we're acquiring this asset for £1, it is unquestionably the justification for participating in the open offer. And I do hope shareholders will participate, so I don't believe they'll regret it. But let me explain what this is. This is a very very significant gas assets. Formerly one of the largest gas assets onshore in the UK. It's being disposed of by a major. The reason the major's disposing of it is that it is toward the end of its life. We reckon, and we're supported by peer-reviewed technical work on this matter, that 60% of the field has been produced. We know that amount from OGA records is 67 BCF. We believe very strongly we can take that to between 70 and 80%. That's another 11 to 22 BCF.
Which in your world is a lot.
It's a lot. Let's get to specifics. We're getting 51% of the revenue stream here. We'll be operator. 51% of the midpoint there is about 8 BCF.
Is it currently producing?
It was been producing as recently as 2 years ago. It got stranded by the closure of a nearby refinery. 7 wells in the ground, capped for the time being, but can be, as soon as it reconnected to the gas grid, we just run it and flow it. And I'm not saying there won't be work to be done, but no drilling, at least initially, and it won't be workovers for many years, I shouldn't have thought. So our main aim is to reconnect the field.
Is that where some of that £3.5 million goes?
None of that goes there, because we're buying the asset for £1, and we get given by the vendor £2 million as part of our share of long-term abandonment costs. And in the short run, we can use that to reconnect, and all the works on reconnection, which we believe will be below that figure. And then after 9 years of cash flow, we'll deal with abandonment at the other end.
So when can you actually tell us where that asset is, what it is?
What it is.
When?
We've said to shareholders we're in an advanced stage of discussion on this asset. That was a week ago. I'm very happy to say that, as you might expect, it's progressed further. So can I tell you when a transaction will close? No, because it's down to lawyers and people like that.
Come and do an interview with me first, yes?
I will definitely do that, Donald. Can I just say, in closure on that point, if we're able to get what we believe is a reasonable level of production out of the tail end of this field, our share of that would be 8 billion cubic feet. Now that's worth to us our market cap today. So from my perspective, this is transformational. We're at 4p now, should be at 8p if we close this one and we get it in the bag sensibly. And once we will be able to show immediately a significant presentation with technical material, our plans for the next 6 to 8 months to reconnect, proper stuff.
We look forward to it.
So a little bit of risk there to close it, but a lot of reward.
Great. Okay. Otherwise, your announcements have been about Brockham. Brockham, you're the majority owner, the operator. Okay. So at least life is in your hands. What have you achieved in Brockham so far?
Well, as I say, we've isolated the water, and now we're going to step back, take a look at what works need to be done to communicate properly with the reservoir. And we're looking very closely at exactly the similar works done by UCOG at neighbouring, just 12 kilometres up the road at Horse Hill, to some extent for guidance and the best way of approaching that.
So you're absolutely clear that your water issues are dead and gone?
Yes, that's my understanding. That's what's coming up from the technical
And
people.
so next thing in is put in a
well-tested equipment.
And take it from there.
Take it from there.
What kind of time frame will that be done over, do you think? What can you tell us?
We've already set that out and told shareholders. The only thing is that this is phase 2, and there's got to be an interim where we get agreement with our partners on how to proceed. Hopefully we can do.
Who are your partners?
In Brockham?
Yes.
Well, we've still got Doremus and Alba in there with us, and also one private.
Okay.
On private participants.
So how long do you think those conversations might
Shouldn't
take?
be long. Just getting the guys together in London.
Great.
And of course terrain. The other.
What do you think the flow test might show? Where do you think you might get to? What are you hopeful of?
Absolutely no idea at all.
That's a good answer, George. Very political.
Well, we slated for. We haven't. I don't think we've ever issued a figure, and it'd be very inappropriate if I did now. Of actually anticipated. I would say the forthcoming works at Brockham, we've got a more granular sense of a barrelage figure, even though we haven't published it. We have published the pressure we're getting
So at
and the oil
Brockham,
flow.
you're 25%.
25% of Brockham.
Brockham.
Work scheduled there for the autumn.
Great. What are you doing in the autumn?
That would be an extended production, well test.
So you've already done a 7-day well test
Yeah.
in Brockham, and it's just more of the same.
More of the same, but actually, hopefully, bringing hydrocarbon.
The figures that I was hearing before were 800 and then 1600.
They jumped around, and I
Did
won't update on the RNS because there's nothing happened since. So
thank you, George. Not. You're not giving me much here, apart from the expose at the top, which was phenomenal stuff. Okay, let's move on. Lidsey, you've acquired further 20% of Lidsey from Doremus.
yeah, we got another 20%
What
from
was
Doremus.
that all about?
Well,
Why was that a good strategic thing to do?
Doremus is apparently exiting some of its UK assets.
Okay.
The price, which was all in shares, is about 2.5% of our outstanding shares at the time.
So they take a chunk of you, and that's how you fund it?
Exactly.
Okay.
And there was an orderly market disposal there in the contract. So
Lidsey may prove to be a good deal for you, you hope?
well, I think so, yes, and I think it was a very cheap price to acquire it at.
Great. Okay. Is there anything else I ought to ask you? What else do you think you ought to chuck into the mix? What else is exciting you at the moment?
Exciting me at the moment? I tell you what, it's delivery. I think shareholders have had too much promise and insufficient delivery. And what I'd love to see is a company in 6 months' time, 8 months' time perhaps, which can genuinely say we're 50% production, 50% exploration, and in 1 year's time I'd like that to be 60% production, 40% exploration, always having an exciting exploration side. But
sounds great. Final question then, which entirely ties into that, news flow. What can we expect you to be announcing, which is going to kick the share price over the next few weeks and months, apart from that gas asset, which I'm thrilled about?
I think that is one of the immediate things, and then there will be a flurry of announcement around that. Brockham is, I think, scheduled to be, once the second set of works kick off, a sort of 20-day process. And we will update throughout that, as I hope we've updated to shareholders very honestly throughout this first period, as best we can. So those two. Then I would imagine in June we should have an update on specific planning for Brockham and regulatory approvals from all of our regulators, OGA, HSE, EA, and so forth, in short order after that. So we'll have hopefully have a fixed date for works at Brockham and a schedule, and how long these are going to take, so people have a clear idea and don't imagine things are going to happen, on this day or that day when they're not.
This is oil and gas at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed. George Lucan, MD of Angus Energy, thank you so much for joining us. That was really very interesting, and good luck with the gas asset. And thank you indeed for joining us. If you want to see more interviews like this one, please do click on the London South East logo at the end of this interview. Thank you.